So the reason I wanted to do this podcast with you is because I think that some of the most valuable friendships that I've gained over the years, and one of the reasons I appreciate Joey the most is because of who I've become and the friendships that I've gained in the process. But I realize that for a lot of people, especially if they live in a rural area or they're really isolated because their child can't go out, it's really hard to kind of build those friendships. And I thought, wouldn't it be great if I could bring one of my besties on here to talk about friendships? Because honestly, Michelle, our friendship is so interesting. Like, don't you think?
Yeah.
Okay, I mean, we talk probably every other day, maybe, maybe not on the weekends, but
Couple
we
times
talk
a
about
week,
it
probably.
a
Yeah.
couple times a week or so. We have only been in each other's presence 5 times, maybe.
Perhaps.
Yeah, I barely even knew what she looked like until recently. So, so I really want to, I'm excited to talk about this and friendships and how to build friendships and the different kinds of friendships and how our friendship has evolved. And because I think that a lot of people put a lot of pressure on friendships and there's a lot of envy on friendships. And when you are raising an autistic individual, you you get left out of a lot of things. So how to mainstream friendships into those that are not moms of autistic individuals? How does that whole thing kind of unfold? So the reason I especially want to have Michelle, aside from our unlikely friendship, which is one of my favorite things in the entire universe, is the fact that our children are extremely different. I
Hmm.
mean, super, super different. And I think that that helps both of us appreciate what we have
Yeah.
and also really be able to empathize. But it's also sometimes like I say to her, like, I can't help you with this one. Like, I don't even know. I can't even imagine what you're going through. So this is Michelle O'Neill. She is an author. She's a yoga teacher. She is a nurse. She is extraordinarily wonderful. And she lives in South Carolina. Did I get that right? Because I usually
Hmm.
get that one wrong too. She
Well,
lives somewhere
I've moved
on
so
the
many
Eastern time
times. How
zone.
could you keep up?
She lives on the Eastern. She's always lived on the Eastern time zone. It's always been one of the challenges of our
Yeah.
friendships.
Luckily, you're an
And
early riser.
I know I am a very early riser. I want to talk about how our friendship began in 2010 is what I seem to remember. Does that sound correct to you?
That's probably about right. Yeah.
So one of the things that Michelle and I are both very much into is law of attraction. And we had a mutual law of attraction kind of workshop friend who knew both of us as having autistic children and connected us. Now, that might seem very unlikely today because there are so many parents of autistic children now that it was a
Yeah.
little bit less prevalent back then. And I want to take any newer moms back to what it was like in 1995 or 90, yeah, 95 is when Joey was first diagnosed because there was no internet at that time. I mean,
Right.
obviously there was evolving, but there was no home computers at that time. Like only the most wealthy and the most uh, educated with computers would have a computer at that point. We had to find friendships by putting a post up at the library or I did a lot of them at the health food store because I was so into nutrition. But I did a lot of them at the library and say, we're going to have this meeting for all, if you're a parent of an autistic child, we're going to have this meeting at this time. And that's how we met people. Now Riley's a lot younger. She's 6 years younger than Joey. She's
Yeah.
25.
She's almost 25.
Okay, so she's
So
six. Yeah,
by the time she was diagnosed, we did have the internet and we had the
right,
ability to, meet people that way. But there
right,
still weren't that many people online talking about autism, and there definitely weren't a lot of people with kids that presented like Riley, and definitely
right,
not any girls.
right, right. And it's interesting because I think back, like I had a Facebook account pretty early on, but even then it wasn't even something we talked about on Facebook, or it was just not as known. I don't even know how old Facebook is, but that was one of our first ways of communicating too. So we met through a mutual friend, and what's interesting is we did end up meeting um, at another Abraham Hicks workshop, but we were pen pals, but
Hmm.
email pen pals.
Yeah.
And that's how we met. And it was interesting because Michelle's an incredible writer. Her
Aw,
recent book is called Dog Park. I will try to plug that many
thank you,
times through
Betsy.
it.
It's okay.
But but Michelle's a great writer, so we would share these great emails and talk about how our life sucked.
I don't really know that we did that much because
Yeah, I guess you're right.
we were both on a mission to understand, more on a
Yeah, we
spiritual
were.
level.
We
Yeah.
were. I think we also just felt like we would get, I do remember though us being having moments of being angry just because nobody understood us.
Yeah. I mean, we
Nobody,
didn't sugarcoat the challenges, but it wasn't just,
right.
we've never been one to just have a gripe session.
Really? Yeah. I mean, obviously we're law of attraction friends. We're looking for the positive in everything that we possibly can. But there was a lot of unknowns back then. And so that's kind of where we started. And then I was living in Wisconsin, she was living in Ohio, and then she moved to Florida, I moved to California, and then she moved to South Carolina, and I moved to Washington
Yep.
almost at the same time.
Yeah.
We went through those transitions. But so you've lived in several places and you know the services in several places. And are you happy now in South Carolina?
Yeah. For the moment, I mean, we're still looking for things. I mean,
Yeah.
we've been waiting for SSI for almost 3 years, have been
Yeah.
denied, so
And
that's
let's talk
frustrating.
about this because I think it's a really important subject to talk about, especially when you're dealing with high support needs as opposed to low support needs. We walked into Social Security, they're like, take our money. Like it was it was so easy and so I mean, he probably I can't remember the day, but he probably was having a meltdown in the office and they're just like, "Yep, you qualify."
Mm.
But for Riley, talk about Riley because I think let's set the stage here of who Riley is.
Yeah, she's 24. She's got 2 years of college. She got through that with a lot of support. She needed a lot of support to get through the 2 years of college, but she did. And we've been trying for 8 years to find appropriate employment for her ever since she was a teenager. And it has not panned out yet, and not for lack of trying. And
Yeah,
she's a
you've
wonderful,
so
wonderful
tried.
kid. She's such a good kid. She's so sweet. Um, but she has a hard time coping with stress, has a hard
Right.
time with like front facing um, kind of employment. And so it's been very challenging.
Yeah.
And because her disability for her is so invisible until it's not,
Hmm.
it's hard for her to get
Hmm.
services.
Hmm.
So she
She's
can't
actually on.
quite support herself.
Right.
Um, she can't handle full time employment. She can't do that. And we're ever hopeful. We hope that we'll find something that will click and she'll be able to do it, but so far not. And so we're putting these things in place and just going up against a brick wall every time we turn around.
Mm,
I mean, a
I know.
child with an IEP her whole life, needing support throughout elementary school, all through high school, all through college. And now it's like, oh, she doesn't have a disability. She's not disabled. She doesn't need help.
Because she went to college.
Well, I don't know what their
Is that
reason
one of the
is.
biggest reasons that they're talking about is
They didn't come
or
right out and say that, but they said she's not disabled. I'm like, really? Honestly? And her dream is to be independent and to live independently and to
yeah.
work independently. She really wants that, and we
And
want that for her.
if she had some support services, she'd be able to do all of that. I know.
Yeah, but so
That's the
far,
challenge.
employers have not been able to manage the level of support that she needs. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, we're still working.
It's something that I think I need to be talking about more of on the show is what it looks like being a parent of a high needs versus lower needs and what how extremely different the challenges are. I mean, you and
Yeah.
I are really well aware of them because my um griping and and meltdowns and trauma dumping is way different than yours. And it was actually challenging at the beginning to like for me and I'll be honest, like, here I am dealing with my son putting his head through the wall,
Yeah.
and Riley would have a friend who would reject her, and I'd be like, oh, that's nothing. That's
Yeah.
nothing.
Hmm.
But now, knowing and loving Riley as much as I do, and understanding the parent's perspective, it's just different, because the rejection as a mom that you feel over and over again when your child is left out or not accepted or can't make a friend or just is horrendously lonely is a whole other heartbreak than,
Hmm.
what I'm faced with.
Yeah. And, the more we're learning about Joe,
I
who
know.
knows?
I'm getting more envious of Joe by the day.
Well, yes, but also, like, we don't know if he feels left out. That's a conversation to have, I guess.
Yeah, well, now that he talks about, so to back up a little bit, Joey, my son, is pretty high support needs, non-speaking, but he is a speller, and we know he uses telepathy. He has told us before that he talks to his silent amigos, and every night there are fewer sounds more beautiful than the sound of Joey in his conversations with his silent amigos. He's just laughing and giggling and squealing and having these quiet conversations. And that's one of the most joyful experiences that I've ever had. Now, especially knowing what it is. Like before, for the longest time, I was just like, I don't know what he's so happy about, but he's sure happy.
Yeah.
Now I get it. He's conversing
Yeah.
in his own way, and in a way that I wish I could. I
Hmm.
I I want to, and I'm going to strive to do that more and more. And we are currently in Hawaii visiting a friend, and I've never seen him so happy. He's just he's he we're stay I should mention we're visiting his friend and my friend,
Yeah.
but his friend who is also a speller, unreliable speaker, and they are undoubtedly having these beautiful silent conversations, and it's just the most beautiful thing in the world to experience. So yeah, it's all very different. But on the other hand, I see Riley now, and I mean, she just brings me so much joy. She's on the board of Autism Odyssey, my nonprofit, and she is bright and sweet and thoughtful. And she tells me some of the biggest, like, oh my gosh, like, it changes my world. When she told me I was really struggling with when I first got popular on social media, and a bunch of autistic individuals were uh, bad mouthing me for pampering him or doing all these other things. They were constantly on me,
About every
and
little
right,
thing you did. Yeah.
everything I did, they were really on me. And um, Riley came in, and she's just like, they're just jealous that you're not their mom. And I was like, oh my God, Riley, that's just, I was like, wait, what? That
Betsy's
was
like,
just
oh my
like,
gosh, you just healed me.
I know I did. I did. I did. So Riley is still like my little spiritual
Like a
shaman.
little sage. Yeah.
She is a sage. She definitely is.
She's a beautiful
Um,
soul for sure.
Another thing I want to talk about friendships. Let's go back to more about friendships, and how one of the things that I remember this one early on that you taught me. I had friends that kind of deserted me, and they were my best friends. And at the same time, they both had like basically what had happened for both of them is they were going through breakups with their husband, and I was like helping them get through the breakups. And then they both went back to their husband, and their husband was just like, "You're done with her." And just remember, like, I lost my best friend, and you were just like, best friend is such an overrated term. Like,
Yeah.
do we really have to have a best friend? It's kind of high school or middle
Yeah.
school, is I believe what you said.
Yeah.
And what I have realized since is that I love developing friends for every occasion,
Hmm.
and recognizing when I'm in a particular moment, which friends do I want to connect with. I have, so Michelle knows everything about me. um, for the most part, that's important. And we will talk about, autism. We'll talk about Joey and Riley, and we just catch up in each other's lives. And I have like my other best friend, Carrie, who's also my niece, and she's into nutrition and holistic health. So she and I will talk about food. Like we do a recipe that we love, and we'll talk about food till the very end of the day. We take pictures of each other's dinners and send that off. Um, I'm currently at my friend Julianne's house in Hawaii, whose son is a speller, who we have a lot of the same, you know, quests that we've been on throughout our lives with our sons. Another big common bond. I have friendships who I never talk to Joey about, like never. Like
Yeah.
they're kind of my more spiritual friends. They find positive words of affirmation. I have two friends, Courtney and Andrea, who we do voice messages with. We never actually talk on the phone. Like I will, because with my phone, I will give them an update of what's going on, maybe ask them a question and send off the message, knowing that their lives are kind of busy and they'll listen to the message and then they'll shoot me back an answer. Um, and then I have like my friends April and Amy, who April works with Joey. She's a care provider here in my county, and Amy is another mom of a special needs children. We always laugh about it. We have very, very little in common, again, except for the fact that we're uplifters and we send messages to each other in the morning like, hey, ladies, I hope you guys are going to have a great day. And look at this beautiful sunshine because we live in the same city and all of that. And so there's all these different kind of friendships that I kind of work through the day with. And how building those friendships has been kind of interesting when I think about like where they've all come from. I want to talk about what it takes to be a good friend and how to attract more friends into your life because um, this is something that I think a lot of people are not even as aware of, is especially if the mother, including myself, I have ADHD, but I'm an extrovert. But if the mother has a different type of neurodivergency that they go inward with when they're very, very quiet. Do you consider yourself an introvert or extrovert?
I think I'm more introverted. I
Yeah,
think,
I would
I'll
think
have
so.
little bursts of extroversion where I like to like be with a group and go hiking. But
Right,
that's
right.
enough. That's enough.
That's
And then
enough.
I don't need to interact for a week. So I have little bursts of it, but I am much more comfortable, you know,
Yeah,
being quiet, being
yeah.
home, being quiet.
It's very fair. So if you are quiet and you are home, and especially if you're home with your child, how do you connect with those friends? Where do you go to connect with your friends? And social media certainly has been a great tool, but there's a lot of times with social media that you're just watching somebody from a distance. They're not really a part of your life. You're just kind of watching them. And how would you say, because if you're an introvert and you've moved around as much as you have, how have you been able to connect with friends?
Well, I was a blogger for a long time,
Oh,
for many,
that's
many
right.
years. And I don't know that I would have survived my kids' childhood without that. Like that
Yeah.
was a huge source of support for me. Um,
Yeah.
and it was a give and take. There was a whole tribe of bloggers that we commented on each other's. We were invested in each other's lives and their stories. Um,
Right.
that was and being a writer, that was just a natural fit for me. So that was big when my kids were little. But then when they got bigger, I didn't feel as comfortable writing about them
Yeah.
per se.
Right.
They needed a little bit more privacy.
Yeah.
So I had to like actually go out into the world,
Talk to people. I
talk to
I think
people.
okay, I got to tell you the story. This is so unrelated, but it's just such a funny story. So I recently I had to sell my car, and I brought it to an auto dealership, not an the ones that clean it, detailer, an auto detailer, to clean it and get it ready to sell. And so I told him, I said, hey, my I know this man. I've been taking my cars to him for years because my cars are always a mess and he needs to clean them. So I said, you know, I'm going to sell this. Can you get it ready for sale? And so about an hour later, he calls me back and he goes, I would like to buy your car. And he says, and if you sell it to me, you don't have to talk to people.
Score.
And it is my new favorite line ever. It's like, I get it. And I did sell it to him, and it was delightful. I got about maybe $400 less than I would have gotten, but I didn't have to talk to anybody.
Mm-hmm.
It was really
Mm-hmm.
great. It was really great. And I didn't even have to pick it up. Just went over there with the extra set of keys,
Nice.
which was great.
I like
So,
talking to people in small groups. I like book clubs. I like
oh, see, now
I
that's
like
how you've met people.
yoga,
Right. You've met people that way.
hiking, that kind of thing. So I
Right.
meet people through things that I'm interested in.
And I don't know if you've done this as much, but at least for me, I've met a lot of other, like my friend Amy. Like I met her because we do a lot of autism type events, kind of
Mm-hmm.
things. And when you go to certain events, that is a really great way to, connect with other parents. So we have in my county something called the Arrow Project that April heads up, and we actually have a camp. And so the moms do get a chance to meet because you're dropping your kids off every day, you're picking them up, and you're getting an opportunity. And the dads, I can't leave out the dads because the dads are so vital as well. And this is, I really feel like the dads have it harder. The stay-home dads have it harder.
Mm, perhaps.
It's hard sometimes for them to be able to connect with other dads. So my hat's off to that as well too. I can't speak about it as much because I don't know it as much what their struggles are. So that's why this is more about moms, but I
Mm-hmm.
definitely acknowledge that that's kind of a really big issue. Um, I also want to talk about friendships and how, as I was saying earlier, I have a friendship for everything, which helps it helps my friendships takes them off the hook of me having to agree with everything about with them.
Yeah.
Because if, like Michelle, you know me about food, okay? Obsessed. I can't talk about food enough. I love, 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 love it. We never talk about it, but I don't need to talk to you about it.
Right.
Okay. You will read a book and you're probably super excited about a book you read, knowing I will probably never read it. So you have your book club people to be able to
Right.
talk to that about.
It's
We
pretty
need to
heavy
have,
to try to put all of it on one
yes,
friend. Yeah. I mean,
totally heavy. I
and
know.
especially if you already have a spouse,
Yeah.
like I don't know.
Yeah.
I do think there's a niche for every friend, like you're
I know.
saying, for
Even our
sure.
spouses. I mean, there's things that I don't even talk. Like
Yeah.
I really think even with Ron, like he's never been to a spelling session. I don't think he didn't listen to the telepathy tapes. He believes it,
Yeah.
but it's not something I talk to him about because he's not as invested in it. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean? Like it's like there's sometimes you talk to your partner and you're realizing, okay, I'm talking, but they are clearly not interested. And you just have to say, this is a conversation for somebody else
Yeah.
and not feel like they have to be everything to you.
Right.
And it is fun to be able to have kind of that mix and match of different kinds of friends.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I also want to talk about the demands we put on friendships where we have to be that everything for somebody. Now, this is the honest to goodness truth. So now, how many years have we been friends? I said it was 2010. So we've been friends for 15 years. I don't even think I know what month your birthday is.
Well, I have to
I'm
confess, I know that yours is in March because Facebook gave me a little calendar and popped up like every friend who is in March. I would
so
not have known that like 5 days ago if that hadn't just popped up.
she had her 50th birthday and it kind of came and went like the 50th. Like that's a big day. And I was just like, oh, I missed your birthday. She was she was struggling because nobody in her family really did much anything for her birthday. And
Yeah.
here me, who like knows her soul to the core. But it's funny because
But in their
that's just
defense,
not
I
who
don't
we
really care
are.
about birthdays. Like, I'm not a
Yeah,
big birthday person. And
I
then the
know.
50th came and it was like, well, wait a second, that's a big one. Well, they didn't get the memo. I hadn't given them like the big memo that said, this one matters. The rest of them didn't. But you should all care.
Oh my gosh.
So it was treated like a
What?
regular birthday, which is, if I needed something from them, I should have been a little bit more vocal ahead of time and not just expected it and then been disappointed.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny. Well, my funny story of my 50th birthday. I mean, funny, not funny. It's funnier now. But
I know what you're going to say.
yeah, I know. So, John was my late husband was an incredible introvert. I mean, oh my gosh,
Yep.
talking to people was his job because he was a pediatrician, but he was so introverted.
Yep.
And especially after he stopped working, like he didn't want to have to talk to anybody or do anything. And he just I managed his world. That was my job. It was my job to support John for 16 years.
Yep.
And so I did warn him. My 50th birthday is coming up. You better plan something. And we didn't have a lot of money at the time because we had just, had started our business and our business was just starting to do okay. And it was kind of struggling. So my 50th comes and I told him, I go, you better plan something. And he had nothing planned. Like he didn't even have dinner reservations planned. And I was so angry. And my daughter, Jessie, like even at her young age of 19 or whatever she was, her and her boyfriend, Michael at the time, stepped in and we went out to dinner and they took me out for the day and they brought me balloons and did all kinds of fun stuff to try to like save John. Like they felt bad
Mm-hmm.
for John, who was completely incapable of doing anything. And when we went to bed that night, John said to me, when you least expect it, I promise I will gather your friends and surprise you. And 1 month later, he died.
Yes.
And I say that laughingly because John and I had a very jovial relationship of love, and we laughed at each other's sorrows as well too. Like it wasn't like it, John would never want me to be angry or sad or grieving.
Right.
He wanted me to be happy. So as I was holding the celebration of life ceremony and I'm looking around at like all of my friends and I'm thinking, oh, is this what you
Yeah.
meant,
Thanks, John.
John?
You did it.
Yeah.
You gathered them all.
Nice job.
I remember that. Yeah.
Oh, that was a funny time. Okay, so tell me more then about your friendships. I'd like to know more about the kind of friendships that you've built through the years and how you have built them and managed them.
Hmm. Well, one of my good friends is like phobic of the phone. So we have had
Ah,
this amazing friendship for probably since like maybe 2006 or something, all email. We've met at a couple of different writing workshops,
yeah.
but it's like email. And it's and that's kind of how we started too, which
It
is
is.
really an
Yeah,
interesting
talk
way to
talk
be
about that.
friends.
Talk about the worksheet that we used to do.
Oh yeah. So like you said, we were into Abraham Hicks and law of attraction and stuff like that. So I
Yeah.
don't know who came up with the template. I almost think it was
I
one of your
did.
friends.
It was a friend of mine who had come up with the template
Yeah.
and I had met him
So
on it at a
it was like
workshop
our
and he's like,
morning
hmm yeah,
exercise of filling out this template, which was really easy, really quick and easy thing to do. But it
yeah,
was like it was a manifestation kind of template.
right.
So the questions, I don't know, what would they be? They'd be like, you're starting out with this much money today. Like you'd start with like maybe $1,000, and then the next day would
Right.
be $2,000, and then 3,000, and imaginary play of what you would do if you had
With
that
the
money
money.
right now kicking
Right.
around, right? So that was like how it started off, and then there were more questions about,
You would do a statement of something that you were working to manifest, and then you
yeah,
would do a list of things you knew to be true about that statement, and
like
then
visualizing what you
yeah,
want.
like wouldn't
Um,
it be nice if this happened? And
like,
then
wouldn't
we
it
would
be
do
nice
like
if I was at my friend's in Hawaii's and I didn't have to pay like to stay at a
yeah,
hotel and was having the best
yeah,
day? Like
right,
that kind of
yeah,
thing. Like even if you
yeah,
didn't have a friend in Hawaii,
right, right,
it was just
right.
like just letting yourself dream
Right.
of like the biggest dream. And what I loved about that was that we shared it with each other, and we were completely 100% rooting for each other. Nothing was ever like,
Oh,
oh,
you're
that dream is
right.
too big, or that dream is silly, or get out of
Yeah.
here. What do you think? And wanting that, it was always like just seeing that other person, their imagination, where they took it, and rooting for them.
So true. And that's how we got to know each other so deeply because we knew our innermost wants. You know what I'm going
Yeah.
to do? I'm going to find that and I will put it up on my website.
The template.
The template,
Okay.
so that if you go to
Yeah.
betsyonthego.com, if yeah, I won't have it on the Autism Odyssey website, but I'll have it on the betsyonthego.com website where you can download the template and maybe just even do it yourself. But if you have
Yeah.
a friend to do it with, it's even better.
Yeah.
And then maybe we should start doing it again.
That would be good.
Now, yeah, it is a great exercise to start
It's a
doing that.
great way to start the day. It's just really
Yeah,
positive. It gives you hope. It's a hopeful kind of
right.
exercise. And I think the
And
world needs that right now.
isn't that the truth? And that's okay. So let's talk about this because trauma dumping is something that a lot of us get very much in the habit of doing when we see the world as being super negative.
Hmm.
And I don't ever look at the world as a horrible place. It's part of my belief system is that everything is working out. Everything is
Hmm.
working out. And I have no, I have never believed that everything was working out and then maybe something didn't work out and thought, oh, I wish I had thought more negatively about that. Like it always feels the best to believe that everything is working out and that
Hmm.
it's unfolding in its own perfection. And that's a big part of our belief system. And that's just a really good feeling. The the a lot of the people that I've met with friendships that struggle keeping friends is because they call and the conversation just brings the other person down. So let's for those that are listening to this just on audio versus those that are watching this. So when you think of it this way, your vibration is at a certain set point. And my goal every morning with meditation and quieting my mind is to get my vibration, my emotional quota at the very, very as high as I can possibly get it by just feeling good about the day and
Hmm.
preparing myself for the day. And then if your partner or somebody else is an uplifter, like my partner who wakes up in the morning and is just, you look beautiful no matter what,
Yeah.
and I love you so much, aren't we the happiest, luckiest couple in the world, and da 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 da. It just brings you both up, 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 and up. But if you have a partner or a friend who wakes up and, oh, did you see the news, and this is happening and this is happening, and you're picking up your phone and you're lowering your vibration, you're listening to negative, 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 you just go lower and lower and lower and
Hmm.
lower with your emotion. And with friendships, in my opinion, I want to be an uplifter. I don't want to bring somebody down. But here's the thing that's different. I don't want to stay down
Yes.
there.
And I never
That's
feel
the
like
difference.
you're not calling to commiserate. You're calling to get help. You're calling
Yes.
like it's like you don't want to feel this way,
Yes.
and that I know who you are,
Mm.
and that I can kind of hold that, and we can kind of wiggle it back up. It's not like you're wanting me to like jump into the ditch with you. You're saying like I'm
Yeah.
struggling and I could use some help remembering what I know and who I am. And I think that's the
Yeah.
difference.
That is so
And I do the
perfectly
same
said.
I do the same with you. I never
Yeah.
call just like wanting to like vomit a bad situation. It's like I just like I'm struggling. I need to see this differently. I know that in my right state of mind I could see it differently. I'm not there right now, but maybe you are. And then there are other
Right.
times where if I'm just too low, I don't even make that call because I don't want
Yeah.
to I know I have the tools myself. Sometimes it's easier to
Yeah.
work with a friend, but I want to make sure that I'm not bringing somebody else down. And it's not that I can never reach out for help, but there's, I don't know, it's a daily situation, I guess you have to weigh. I guess
It
it's good to
depends, and it
know.
depends how desperate you are to get out of it. I mean, one of the things you taught me, which every time you used to call me and you would have a frustrating experience, I would try to want to fix it, help you fix it. And I remember so clearly you saying to me one time, I don't always want it fixed. Sometimes I just need to talk about it. And
Hmm.
boy, that was such a gift to me because that is a true nugget of friendship, to know the difference between, and you might even say to your friend, do you want me to help you fix this, or do you just want to talk? Because there is sometimes that we
You just
just,
need someone to hear it. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
and
And I think,
we're tired of
with
trying
our
to
good
fix it.
hearts and our helper, like we want to help, but sometimes
Yeah,
that's not helpful. Sometimes you
yeah.
just need your friend to hear you.
Oh gosh.
Sometimes helpful suggestions can feel like, oh, more things that I'm failing at because I haven't done this, that, and the other thing. You know, it's like,
So true. Because it's true, because I you just hit it right there, is that you don't want to be reminded of the things you haven't done. Well, have you tried, like for me, this is what I'm very guilty of, because any corn product makes Joey very aggressive.
mhm,
So anytime I meet another mom, I'm just, and their child's having aggressive issues. Have you tried corn?
uh-huh.
Have you tried taking out corn?
Oh,
And so, yeah.
nothing can
But
upset a mom more than being told about the diet. when when she's exhausted and the thought of like implementing a diet
right.
seems like insurmountable. I remember, when Riley was 3 and there were no gluten-free products on the market yet. It
Yeah.
was terrible. And I remember just standing in Whole Foods like with a lump in my throat, like what am I supposed to feed her? Like I don't know what to do. I was so overwhelmed. So I totally get that. I believe that diet is really, really important, but I also know how sinking and insurmountable it feels in a society that's just eating such crap.
I know.
It's
I know.
everywhere.
And
So,
it gets, and so much of it now is talked about like, oh, it's just a symptom, as opposed to, yeah, it's a symptom, but it's an important one to try to reverse,
mhm.
because of the fact that the symptom is perpetuating it. I'm going to do, because for those who don't know, I have a course on picky eating, but I've decided I'm going to start gearing a lot of my cooking classes towards picky eaters. So I'm going to start doing more on how to get, recipes that are really based on texture sensitivities, and doing more of that. That's going to be my newest adventure, because I'm always doing something crazy. Um, so yeah, this has been fun. I've really enjoyed getting to talk to you here. I can never talk to you enough. Isn't she pretty? That's the other
Oh,
thing
you're
we'll
so
do.
pretty. You're pretty.
We'll tell each other, we'll be like, my day is so horrible. And then we'll just write, you're pretty. That's a
Sometimes
good
I'll
one.
just text her randomly out of the blue, you're pretty, just in
Yeah.
case she's having a bad day.
It's so great. It's so great. So for those listening out there, I hope you build some beautiful, wonderful friendships, and be open to all the different ways that you can do that. And know that someone out there is looking for you as much as you are looking for them. So,
Yeah, be brave, make the first move. Like, talk to somebody.
right. Michelle, before I forget, your book, just real
Oh,
quickly. Can you talk about your book?
yeah, yeah. So, I just released a book in December. It's called Dog Park.
Oh, you have it nearby? Yes. Yes.
And it's a
And so,
novel, and it's actually about friendships. It's about the trope that they call it's a found family trope. So that is when we find people in our lives and we make our own family.
it's just
You
such a
know,
great book. And there's a
and so
neurodivergent character in there. Oh, here comes
yeah,
Joey.
there's a neurodivergent character in the book, vetted by my daughter.
I
And
love
it's a
it.
book about it's an eclectic cast of characters that meets at a dog park, and there's a lot of drama and things that happen. But the dog park is the setting, and the people with their dogs. Everyone loves their dogs, and they pretty much have nothing else in common but their dogs, but become a family because of what happens at the dog park. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Which
fiction.
is
And
such a beautiful story. I was very, very privileged to be able to read it before it came out.
oh,
And
thank you.
she knows I'm not a big reader, but I could not put it down. It was so enjoyable, and I just had so much fun reading it. Now, we talked about before we should give a copy away
Oh yeah.
to a listener, but we didn't talk about how we're going to do
How are we going to
that.
do that?
We possibly should have discussed this before we actually
Well, I've
did
got a
the.
signed copy I'm willing to give away to one of your listeners, and you can
Okay.
figure out.
Hey, I'll tell you what. First person who comments on my social media page, betsyonthego.com. Anybody who says I want
In the
Michelle's
United
book
States, because I'm not paying
in
for
the
shipping
United
to
States. Yeah,
China.
I do have a very diverse listening group. So yeah, anybody who comments on my social media page, Betsy on the Go, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, anybody who comments, it's yours.
They
And
win a free signed copy of Dog Park.
I love it. I love it. And I'm really sorry if you don't get it, but I really hope you do. So, all right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. And I'll talk to you next week.
Bye.